Hello, Namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I am your host Nagesh Deshpande, and we have another episode of Talks with Deshpande ji. Today, we have another special guest, a good friend of mine, and uh, he is LinkedIn community top voice for Agile leadership, executive coaching, emotional intelligence, and mentoring and coaching. Um, Ankit Agrawal. Ankit is an agile evangelist, passionate about enabling people and business to adopt agility. He is an agile transformation coach, so he brought a lot of experience and knowledge on these topics. He has been speaker, reviewer at many global renowned industry agile conferences. So me and Ankit often we meet in meetups or conference and we exchange ideas and I got to learn a lot of things from him through his talks. So today we are going to discuss a little different topic. Normally whenever we go to conferences or meetup, people talk about transformation and how they brought the change and all, but very few people have courage or very people have a idea about talking about failed stories. So the topic will be today's agile transformation failed stories. So let's welcome Ankit. Hello, Ankit.
Hello, Nagesh. Thank you so much for having me here. Uh, I've recently watched all your episodes, and I really like the way you keep experimenting to come out with a better version of the podcast, be it adding music or changing the sequence. So, yep, I really enjoyed the talks, and thank you so much for having me here.
It's a pleasure and thanks for your feedback. So how was your day so far?
It's been good. It's just that I think the folks in Pune, like you and me, we are struggling with the change in temperature at morning versus evening. So,
So
yeah.
uh, good, good. So I just want your views, about this topic that we are going to discuss.
Sure. So even before we talk about failed agile transformation, right? Let's do a very generic establishing of what does agile transformation mean.
Right.
And if I were to put it very simply, I would say agile transformation is the journey to achieve business agility. And when I say business agility, it's how an organization demonstrates its capabilities, behaviors, and ways of working to, demonstrate flexibility or freedom or resilience to stay relevant or even to flourish. Again,
Right.
agility is not just so that you can stay relevant, it's also so that you can lead in the market. So that's what I would think about an agile transformation. And when we say a failed agile transformation is when you started on this journey and you could not achieve the results that you were looking for at the start, or somewhere on the track you
Mm,
got lost, or probably some deviation. But in summary, the business results or the business outcomes that you were looking for from a transformation did not materialize.
correct. So can you share some of the examples or stories of failed agile transformation?
Sure, I can do that. And I mean, if anyone goes on to Google and start searching, you will see a lot of examples from both failures and positives from apparel businesses or airways or banks, and a lot of them. But to keep it more practical, right, what happens on the ground and something that I can bring in from my experience or something that I've witnessed upfront very closely, I'll share probably two or three small anecdotes or stories which probably would be more relatable rather than looking at the overall business, right? And I'll start with something which happened like many years ago. I have a friend who's also working in IT. He's a developer, an architect now. And when he was introduced new to Agile, and I was just chatting with him, he told me, uh, we got into Agile, so I don't do any documentation now. I've told my leads that because we are doing Agile, we'll not do any documentation. And I gave him a puzzled look, saying, "What do you mean? Like Agile says, no documentation." And because it was a fun evening, I did not think of correcting him there. It wouldn't have made sense. We did have a long, but such instances, right, where you see people misinterpreting what it means, or people having no idea is example. So failures could be at failures for a transformation could be at multiple levels, but highly categorizing them, there could be three things: either you did not start them right,
Hmm.
or while implementation the purpose got lost, or your execution did not work out, or the implementation strategy was not that great that the purpose got lost. And there could be a lot of reasons for them, or the sustaining part of it did not happen. So you started good,
Right.
you did implement it right, but as soon as you put it onto a self-sustaining mode for it to, go on its own like a continuous improvement journey, that did not work out well. And shortly after your coaches or they stopped engaging, probably you lost the momentum which we'd achieved. Now, coming back to the examples that I have witnessed very closely, I will tell you one of the organizations that I was working with. We had a very huge client, and there was a team of agile consulting experts re- provided to the client because the client was huge. And
Hmm.
when I joined onto the project, I very casually asked one of the client account leads that, what got you motivated to start an agile journey, right? You've got such a huge business. You were already the first or the second in your domain. Why do you think you need one? To my surprise, or let's call it a shock, the answer was we want to do it because everyone's doing it these days and we don't want to be left out.
Exactly.
So now you see here, right? There was no there was not a business goal that they mentioned of. There was no vision that they mentioned of. There was no problem statement that they wanted to achieve with, be it business or with respect to ways of operating or with people or anything. So that is one thing that I would say where you did not, start off very well.
Right.
Uh, the other example that I have, again, probably very much is related to metrics, something that we
We often discuss.
all, yeah, we often discuss and engineer and over engineer and dread and fight and things like that, but metrics, right? So I was witnessing one of the teams, and then at a department level there was some sort of a meeting going on with one of my previous organizations, where it was so found that the department that we were working in, their change delivery rate, so number of releases that they had,
Hmm.
was lesser than the other departments. And so
Okay.
the leads or the leadership of our department started to worry about it. And this organization or the culture of the organization is not something that they were new to Agile. They had a fairly decent journey. People were aware about it. If you walk into any floor or any team, you would know that people are aware of what the practices are or ways of working are. They were not like completely unknown. So at this environment, this thing happened. So some of the leadership members, they said, you know what, they tried to find the root cause of why this is happening.
Hmm.
And then their version of root cause that came out was because you are not splitting your number of change requests. So they found out how it was being calculated. If your changes are being deployed globally in like 2 or 3 regions, you are bundling them in the same change request, which is getting counted. Even though if you're
Hmm.
doing like the separate releases, your change request is the same. So that's why the other departments have more.
More.
So let's start splitting the change request. So every time now that you have to do a release, you have to do 3 or 4 change requests, depending on the number of. Now, what this brought in also was that, for example, if you needed to do like for governance and audit perspective, if you had to do a release, a pod would spend half an hour approximately for one change request.
Agree.
Now you split it into four. So now you have to do it into 4 times.
Right.
The end outcome is still the same because the features that you are going to release are still going to the same customers. There are no customers improved, no customers reduced. And interestingly, soon after this was implemented, the metrics was going high. but there were a few production incidents that happened, unfortunately. So now the scrutiny increased. Change governance people stepped in and they said, we will increase the scrutiny. So they started putting additional checks, meaning if because of the additional check, if you have to spend more 30 minutes for one sprint, one release, that also got multiplied.
Multiplied.
Eventually, after 3 to 4 months, the sprint in the sprint, the teams were spending so much more time in uh, getting the release notes, but
Release notes.
the admin part in the tool, which they were probably doing one fourth of the time spent currently. The metrics did improve. So we did say that, okay, now we are at par with others. We are doing good. But if you look at the value perspective of it, were we delivering more? No. Were we delivering more value? No. Right? So
Yeah,
this is probably another example of how a transformation on ground going wrong can tell
yeah,
you, right? You don't have the
yeah.
right mindset or
Right, right. I'll go back to your previous example. So we often discuss it's called FOMO, you know, feeling of missing out.
yeah.
So I heard it from many times. You know, my leadership went to some agile conference, or their friend organization is implementing agile, so they just don't want to miss it. You know, the feeling of missing out, FOMO. That's why agile comes into the picture. So far, my experience, so I closely, often looked at, instead of business or digital transformation or technical transformation, I look at people transformation. So my favorite part is people. So in my experience, when the most misunderstood term for me in my experience is cross-functional team. So how it was got translated and transformed, that each team member have to do every role. uh, that is their definition of cross-functional team. So I was a tester. Now I had to do coding, which is neither I am interest nor I have skill set. So first of all, I have to put a lot of inputs to increase my skills. Okay. So some people may do it. Some people may not be interested to do that. Okay. So there, the implementation itself, it was wrong. Understanding of people need and all that. So as eventually it failed. So that's how I looked at it. How you are transforming people as well, not just in, you know, the ability to adapt to change, deliver at a sustainable pace. You know, how you make them unable to do that. So that I always looked at when anyone says that we are doing agile transformation. So those are those are my inputs. So moving on. So we discuss, few things here and there. What are the common pitfall that you see, leading into this transformation?
So you mean common pitfalls for which results into failure of
Yeah,
transformations? Yeah.
leading into,
Right.
so let's say a team or organization, they are moving into transformation, and then there are common pitfall that they fail there.
So and I will share with you article that we compiled across various leaders in the industry, and if we can put it in the link for the audience. But there are
We'll do that.
highly at a
Mhm.
very high level, I would call out 5 or 6 factors that lead into the failures of in transformation. Right. First one being there's no structure to change management. Transformation
Mm.
is nothing but change management, right? So
Yes,
the structure to change management is not right, or there is not enough focus, like you just said, not enough focus on getting the culture or mindset shift. So not enough focus or effort spent there. Then one of the most important factors again, leadership. If you don't have a leadership buy-in, or if you don't have the right leadership support, for example, if you see a lot of leadership changes happening every now and then, the momentum gets lost, right?
right,
So you have to, it puts you back to on your journey. So leadership buy-in or leadership support is another one. Uh, the next one I would say is data-driven approach. So everything. And when I say data, it's not really just metrics or things like that. It's how you approach transformation, how you set your goals, how you devise your smaller experiments to reach to the transformation or do a pivot or preserve every now and then, right? So just your retrospectives or continuous improvement. Uh, the next one would be practices. How well are people aware of the practices? And if they were given enough training.
Right.
And then at the last, but again, the most important part, keeping the people at center of transformation, right? If uh, be it your team members or your customers or your leaders, if you don't keep them at the center of the things that you are doing, then that again probably will not take you anywhere. So these are some five or six um, factors that I would put.
No, very, very well added. Very well. So, we just discussed one of the impacts, of failure. So, like we try to do transformation, and people factor not considered, and people may lose interest doing their, the work they chosen for. But can you elaborate, or can you help us to understand some, business related, impacts when, failure of this agile transformation?
So, one clear impact obviously is going to be your business outcomes, right? You're
Right.
not going to meet your OKRs, or you will probably not achieve the roadmap or the speed that you are aiming at because it didn't work out for you, or your transformation did not give you the results that you were hoping for. And this is in case if you had the right business alignment in the first place. If you did not even have the business goals alignment to your transformation, then probably it is a lost cause any which ways.
Agree.
So
Agree.
that, uh, but it's not just that you did not achieve. You
Mm.
will also get into a lot of rework because a lot of things that you did to get into a transformation phase and then pilot and then scale the pilot, if at all it's not moving in the right direction, there will be a lot of rework in terms of transformation and in terms of delivery as well. Most importantly, you will probably lose on people morale. The people motivation will go down.
Motivation, yes.
And I have heard so many team members or developers saying this every now and then. We were always saying there is no need. We could have continued the way we were. What is the point? First, you tell us to do this, and then you're telling us to do something else, and now then you're telling us to do this again. It's just so frustrating. And I have heard this from so many people.
Right.
So that kind of a loss is very, very impactful. I mean, when you do not get the transformation in the right direction.
Great. Great point. Yeah. So moving on to the next side. Yeah. So we we already discussed, resistance. So people are showing their resistance in a way. So first of all, the whenever we bring the first change, people will resist. Then we again bringing more changes, people will resist. So can you share some insights, how to address this resistance from the, either from the team, or overall journey in this journey?
Okay, let's talk about people first
People.
because you said people is your favorite part of it and it's also mine. So let's talk about the resistance that come from the delivery teams or the agile teams or pods as we call it, right? Resistance from them. I think the very first reason is to very neutrally go and find out what is the root cause of assessment. Sorry, what is the root cause of resistance?
Resistance.
And when you do this, right, you have to be very, very mindful that you have to do this with empathy and with a neutral mindset.
Mm.
If you are a coach or if you are someone who is trying to find this root cause, you cannot have biases. And often I have heard leaders or even coaches or scrum masters saying, this team always does this. This team
Mm.
always has a problem. Every time you bring something new to them, they will tend to resist. They know this is not a straight team to work with. That's absolutely not the right way of trying to find why. Because people don't get up in the morning and they will be like, we'll make it difficult for everyone to work. They don't
Agree.
do that,
Right.
right? They want to do what's best for everyone, also what's best for them and what's best for their work. No one intentionally wants to make it difficult for
Yes.
their own self.
Yeah. No one wake up to create problems, like you said.
Right. So that doesn't happen. So finding out the real reason of why root cause, why is the resistance, and getting to the root cause is very important. And you will get there if you talk to people neutrally, if you do some anonymous surveys or some surveys which will give you insight. Not everything will come out of face-to-face conversations. Something you can pick up from there, something you will have to pick up from observation, or something you will have to pick from surveys or things like that. But in my experience, the resistance have come from either there is a history of change fatigue.
Hmm.
We were told
Right.
to do this 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 1 year ago. Every time we are doing this and you are changing your instructions. So if your transformations is not thought through, if there is not enough systems thinking gone in place, and if you keep changing your transformation directive, that gets into a change fatigue mode for people who have to um, apply the directives that we set for them, right? So if your vision was not thought through, then change fatigue comes in, or people were not made aware of um, the change purpose in the right way. So we often say, what's in it for them or what's in it for me? So that part was probably not covered very well for people. I personally look at Agile as something which will give the right ownership of things to the right people.
Right, people. Yeah.
So if you are to give more ownership to someone, why is someone going to say no to you? If you have communicated that right, why is for an example, if I tell an engineer that you decide how you want to do it, it's just that we want to meet the business goal. Why are they going to say no to it?
Agree.
There's no reason.
No reason. Hmm.
Right, so either that, or if, like we said earlier, right, if there is a leadership buy-in not present, then that's another reason of why resistance can happen. And again, a very quick story of something that I was working with, some teams that I was working with long ago, right? uh, they were told to operate, they were told to operate in agile ways of working. There were trainings that happen, including the leaders and teams and everyone. Then they were said that you form your agile teams, you start delivering into something. And we were and there were people who were doing governance, so they were drawing metrics and everything. And it, from the outside, it looked like a good picture.
Hmm.
There were certain improvements that were suggested from metrics, but if you walked on the floor and sat with the team, there were no agile teams. There were just bunch of people who kept switching between tasks from today to tomorrow, tomorrow to day after.
Hmm.
And trust me, they were spending more effort instead of spending the effort on getting into that ways of operating. They were spending more effort so that their numbers never went wrong. So gamifying or manipulating the ways of
Manipulating. Yeah.
operating took more efforts, but they were still comfortable there
Hmm.
because they probably could not see the reason of why adopting to change would help them. So in all such cases, I think you should probably once you've understood the root causes of resistance, we should probably look at uh, you know trying to address the pain points if there are any. Leadership buy-in again becomes very important. Communications need to be more open, transparent at all points in time, right? If there are any change initiatives, what, why, how, so they should call out the purpose. They should cover of how it will help everyone. And then also, find small success stories, reward
Uh-huh.
them, publish
All right.
them, celebrate them. Because if I am an agile team and if I see someone else is being recognized or celebrated, I will probably want to be there as well, right? Why will
Right.
I want to be left behind? So I will want to go and be like them. So publish your success stories, get small success stories, publish them.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah. So we already gave some idea about leadership buying. Hmm. So let's talk both side of it. So what happens when there is a leadership buy-in and what happens when there is no leadership buy-in in case of transformation?
So What happens when the leadership buy-in is not there is what I just quoted, right? You try to safeguard your interests, or if there
Yeah,
is a personal agenda, or a lot of time office politics come into play. So if all those are there, then the leadership buy-in is not there. Then that will probably result into only a outside picture looking good like a watermelon. But
yeah,
if you dig,
watermelon, exactly.
yeah, if you dig deeper into it, then probably the problems will start to surface, or the deviation from what you would expect will start to surface.
Right,
But what will happen if the buy-in is there, right? In that case, the people that you want to get into your transformation, or people whom you want to adopt the change mindset, they will find a safe environment to experiment with.
right,
They will be more transparent in calling out any challenges that they face. There will be a healthy communication. There will be multiple opportunities to inspect and adapt, where you can find blockers or challenges very, because in that case you have you're a safe environment, right? You will not be worried about getting penalized. You
right,
will not be worried about uh, and then similarly it will flow at all levels, right? Again, your leadership will operate in the same way. So as simple as in IT, right? The entire
right,
software development cycle, if you have a buy-in from the leadership, right from finding the requirement, or let's say discovery, up to release, everyone will operate in the same way. So there will be no conflict of ways of operating. There will be a common said understanding of why you will want to do it in a certain way, and there will be a common alignment of what is that we want to achieve out of it, or what do we do if we fail.
right.
So that's the role, that giving people the safety, the right vision and direction is what a leadership buy-in can do for you.
Agree. So I'll share my views also. So if a Scrum Master and an Agile coach, or even doesn't need to be a Scrum, you need not to be a Scrum Master or Agile coach. Even if you are following practice Agile and you are a Agile team member and you willing to bring change, which will improve your outcomes, your business, and you propose that change to leadership. If leadership has the understanding or buy-in of agility, they will understand what you are trying to say. If they don't have, they will say why we are doing it, or they will question you. So that again the friction will be there, and then it will hamper your transformation. So I face this particular challenge when I, as a Scrum Master, brought some ideas to change the structure. So a common example, I want my entire team to sit together. Okay. And leadership didn't understand why I'm trying to do that. You know, he said, we never do that. This, product team sit somewhere else. Let them sit there. I said, no, how it will help? So it took a lot of time. And eventually it failed. They didn't allowed me. But so this is how. So if leadership knows that the benefits of team sitting together or how it will add value, they will immediately, yes, let's do this change. So this is the benefit of having a good buy-in from. Great. So let's move on to
So
the, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
maybe
Yeah.
quickly I'll share an example of not everything's like bad and gray, right? I'll share a
Right,
good
right.
example of how a leadership buy-in helped one of my teams a couple of years ago. So we were working on a platform, and then there were a couple of regulatory changes that we needed to do,
Hmm.
and it was super critical, as critical as people were told your bonuses are linked to this. So as critical as that, and we were typically following PI planning as our quarterly planning idea, right? So I was leading the team which was told to fix all these regulatory changes announced or within the set of time, right? And during the PI planning, when we do the review where you present your plan,
Right.
I said I talked to the stakeholders and the leadership folks saying that I am happy to lead this team, and I've discussed with them. We'll probably not do Scrum.
Okay.
We'll operate more in a Kanban way. And that is what I have discussed with the team, and that is what the team have come up with. This is how they want to go about it. And this was something new for this whole set of teams, right? The whole value stream, because they had not been very much doing this in the past, or they haven't heard anyone doing it in the past. And because we shared the right reasons of why we want to do it our own way, they said, okay,
Hmm.
the goals don't change. We have to meet this because this could cost the brand of the organization. So we want you to be mindful of that. We want to understand more about it because then we also want to support you. So probably if you can tell us how you are going to do things, what will be your ways of operating. But as far as we agree on what is that we want to achieve as an outcome, we are okay if you want to follow Scrum or Kanban or if you bring something else out. And within 2 quarters, uh, we were the only team who had everything green from red. Now, again, it's not that it's just because we did Kanban we came out green. It's that um the support that we felt or the support that the team felt from the leadership, that yes, we are allowed to experiment.
Hmm.
We are owning what we are doing. As far as we are aligned to the goals, we are okay. Reports and metrics were set up in alignment with what the team was doing and not just the typical metrics that we were following for all other teams. The ceremonies had a different view of it. So, for example, system review, right? We do that at the end of every sprint. We didn't
Great,
have
yeah.
sprints for that team, but we did call out the numbers that we achieved. So that was the review for them, and it was very much accommodated by everyone, like the peer teams, the leads, the value stream leads. So that's what a buy-in did. They help people to boost confidence that we don't want to get into how you do it. We are more towards what is that you are doing and you understand why you are doing that. So that's a positive example of what leadership bind did for us.
Great. It was great example. Absolutely. And then, uh, managing, handling change is very challenging things. No one wants to change something, which is we are used to it, and then suddenly, sir. So when this change brought up, how you help team, or how to help some team members or teams, I will say, to navigate this change, when we are bringing this change.
So I think one thing that everyone has to be mindful of in the entire construct, right, be it leads or teams or anyone,
Hmm.
is that change is not something that will happen overnight. We have to be very conscious of it. There will be moments where you will have to be supportive in your change journey, meaning, and you've seen the typical change journey graph, right, where we do expect there is a dip at some points, and then you
Absolutely.
reinstant, and then it goes towards the positive. So you have to be prepared because again, from witnessing a couple of teams going into transformation, people or leadership or things don't not go your way in just regular times, when there are pressures or when there are things going in the wrong direction, when there is too much rework happening
Right.
because of the change initiative, then the scenario changes. So that is where you will actually be able to see, for example, if you do not meet your couple of sprint goals, that is where you probably see if people are buying into your change or not.
Hmm.
Because at the start probably people will say, okay, let's do it. But when, so to be able to have that small checkpoints where you pivot or preserve, that's something that is important, and you have to be mindful of that right from the start of your transformation, that there will be moments where you may face dips, and you can be smart about it. You can
Right.
decide your checkpoints accordingly. In terms of people, helping them adopt change, right? Something that we talked about earlier was communicating the right vision and what's in it for everyone, why
Right.
or how it can help them, what is that they can look out of for. And then, of course, coaching can help, or if the teams are very new, then teaching or mentoring could also help. Invest in training and support where needed. Build that safe space where people are not afraid of experimenting or doing calculated experiments. So all these things together build a culture. So if that gets adopted by people, then there is a high probability of your change happening or the transformation happening the way you were looking at it.
Great, great points. Yeah. So some of the things that you also added, I'll just quickly touch base. So you quickly summarize, PDCA, plan,
Yeah.
plan, do, check, and adopt. Also about bringing more transparency. So what exactly we are trying to achieve, be transparent on that. There shouldn't be any gray area, shouldn't be any black box. Yeah. So or gray box even. So should be always a white box. So these are the things. Now let's say uh, we did plan transformation and eventually it failed. Now how can we recover from it?
Again, it's not very easy. Like we
Easy,
said
not
at the
easy,
start,
not at all. It
it's
will
going
again, as you said, it will not happen in one day, or it will not have it happen overnight. So, but still, long term, even if I have to, as I plan my transformation long term, my recovery should be also long term.
right. And I think it's probably a good time to take a pause and do some retrospection, right?
Right.
And then reevaluate things like, did we start with the right goals?
Mm.
Did we spend our efforts and time into the right space? Did we, so just did we have regular checkpoints? Because if you have regular checkpoints, like you said, PDCA, right? Then you would probably know that, which part of it or which between what two checkpoints did things start going south. So that's also something that you can look at to recover. So take a pause, see if your goals, if your business goals are still valid, right? A lot of times it does happen that after reaching a certain stage, not transformation, but maybe your business goals become obsolete, either
Right.
because of competition or you've not you've been outdated or things like that. So your business goals are still valid, or do you want to change the business goals is something that you should look at. Similarly, I would think also see if you want to change whatever you've done, or for example you've tried 10 different practices or ideas. Do you want to do it the same way, or do you want to preserve some of them that has been worked for you, and then try to do these kind of retrospective exercise at all levels. You could also get into a big room and do it with all your team members, right? Collect as many points and then pick it like a retrospective of what is that we would want to do differently so that we don't land up it's no point doing the same thing again and
Again,
expecting a
yeah.
different result.
Yeah.
So try different things, but do evaluate if your business goals are valid and if your
Mm.
transformation goal is linked to them.
Yeah. I'll bring my favorite term in this factor. So if you heard, my viewers and Ankit, you must have heard it, pesticide paradox. So
Yep.
what happens, pesticide paradox in that you cannot use the same pesticide on the bugs. Eventually they will become immune to it. So same goes with your transformation journey. You have to change it. You have to either increase something, you have to decrease something, and then you have to bring those change to see the result, different result. Otherwise, the your if your methods are same, the results will be similar. So that's the so pesticide paradox. It's actually one of the testing principle, but applicable everywhere.
Yep.
So yeah, so good, good. And moving ahead, how can we build this culture? Creating this culture of agile transformation and all that. So some of the strategies that you can
So um, I think if, and I'm just going to reiterate this multiple times
multiple,
that
yeah,
start with the right goal
go.
in mind, and that should be a business goal, not specifically. I mean, you're not looking at getting everyone a doctorate in agile ways of working, right? You are using that as an enabler to reach to your business outcomes in the right possible way, or faster, or with the least effort, right? So things like this. So start with the right goals. Start small. That's the other advice I would want to give, that don't jump into it fully. Conduct your experiment. So start small. But then when you start small, also don't silo it to probably one similar kind of team. Or so usually we talk about transformations within IT, right? But
Right,
if we look at the other components of the organizations or even portfolios, and the very first that comes into my mind is recruitment, right?
right,
So if at any point of time you go onto LinkedIn, you will find this um, you will find these job descriptions where you would find a Scrum Master job description with the title saying that we want a manager, tech lead, Scrum Master, change manager,
change
and
agent,
probably so many
CI/CD
things.
expert.
Yeah, and that just goes into the title. Think of what would the job description have, right? So even when you are starting small on your roadmap, when you build that vision, try to slice your transformation iterations in a way where you cover the all components or all moving parts of your system, be it
Hmm,
operations or logistics or recruitment or technology things. Just don't focus on technology teams. That's the other thing that I would say. And then do what we said earlier, PDCA, do a regular retrospective. So everything that you try and apply on for example, if you have a Scrum team or a Kanban team or any other agile team, right? Everything that you teach them at a team level, you should be able to do the same thing for your transformation. I mean, if you have pilot teams, why not have a definition of done for them? Set a definition of done for them, that this is where we will probably start moving to the next set of pilots. Or if this is our first experiment, this is what we will look for at the end of the experiment. That's our definition of done. So either we meet it or we don't meet it, and then we'll see if we want to scale or then re prioritize the same set of teams or things like that. Also have some sort of you know sustaining model in mind of
right.
once you achieve a certain set of transformation goals, and then how will you keep it in the self-sustaining mode for the longer run.
Great.
Yeah.
So moving on to last few questions, So now, how do you measure success? What is the criteria that should be? How can we measure success? So let's say we brought a transformation. It is now, what will be the success criteria?
um, so I'm not sure if you've heard of the scrum.org framework, evidence-based management. It
Okay.
calls about it's a very nicely, and it's again mostly like PDCA, but it's very nicely put, 3 or 4 factors where you can measure things like realized value, unrealized value,
Hmm.
your ability to innovate, or or your time to market.
Great.
So if and it's really like a 13-page PDF if you look at it with a lot of metric examples, but it very rightly says of how you would be able to measure uh, your business or your transformation goals or any initiative in general, right? So the idea is that if you are able to achieve your business outcomes, if you are able to measure your milestones, if you have set up the right metrics, for example, your customer value is going up, your NPS is going up, if that those metrics are applicable to you, right? Or if your release rate is improving just in the range where it makes most sense for you or your organization. If you see these kind of changes happening, which I am assuming were also the same things that you started with as your business goal, right? So if you are able to move in those directions and if you are reaping the business outcomes, then probably your transformation is working for you. So in itself, the measure shouldn't be like number of teams who've got onboarded. Yes, that could be a roadmap. That could be a way for how you to approach transformation, but that shouldn't be I mean, number of teams or number of teams using practices. Those kind of teams, those kind of metrics shouldn't be something that you should link your success of the transformation with, or at least that's how I would look at it.
Great, great. So moving on to our last question. So uh, I'll change it a little bit, not fully. So now, if an organization embarking on a journey of a transformation, what kind of advices will you? So I am looking for advice not just for the organization, even for the people. So people who they are uh, embarking their transformation in their career. What kind of advices you will?
For people who are looking also, I mean, in terms of their career, or a lot of middle management people transforming into these roles, right? Find the right reasons for yourself of why you want to do it, or and talk to a lot of people, and I get asked of how did I move into this space, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
my first answer is that my couple of my initial projects were uh, mostly like SAP projects, and nothing against SAP, but the way they were happening felt like um, the developers, the people who were sponsoring it, or the customers, right? They constantly were not involved in the system or in
Hmm.
the development journey or everything that was happening as an ecosystem, right? So that probably kept one, I mean, kept in my head lingering as thought that if people in all aspects or in the entire ecosystem, if people are not satisfied or they are constantly facing something, and that is where I was introduced to Agile, which felt like more of something which I would adopt to. So uh, for people, find the right reasons if you are moving into different roles or if you're transforming your career aspect of it, or even if you are already there and if you are um, part of the change initiatives or if you are leading the change initiatives, try to map your your vision to the overall vision, help everyone do that, use maybe use continuous improvement as also something that you would do individually and then for your teams and then for portfolios and organizations. And the second part of the question where what organizations can do, I think we it's the same thing we already talked
Yeah,
about, right?
already done.
Start small. Don't rush to scale things before they mature. So start small. Have a good understanding of what maturity would look like. Uh, do systems thinking. Don't and that goes well with the pesticide paradox that you said, right? You'll also have to see how it how any change that you do will make an impact on where you are making a change versus everything else that it's linked to as a whole system. So don't and then someone told me that if you scale with problems you scale problems, so
Right.
don't venture into that territory. You start small, do systems thinking, iterate like how you would want to have your product development to happen, iterate and then do regular inspection. I think keep it simple, lean and safe for people, like as a safe space for people.
So,
That's that's all it should do.
great. It was wonderful discussion. So much, so many things. Even if it is very small, but it is very important. The things that you brought up to this podcast today. And to our viewers, we are going to share a few details with you. Details of Ankit. How can you connect with him? Um, Ankit is very good mentor as well. So you can leverage the opportunity to get connected with him on LinkedIn. Um, Post your questions. I will be happy to help you. Also, he's going to share one of his blogs article. Link will be available in the description box. And I would like to say thank you, Ankit, once again for coming and giving us a time, valuable time. And see you soon. And we'll hope to see you, in one of the conferences.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay.
say to wait for the conferences,
Goodness,
probably catch up over
yes, yes,
a cup of chai or something very
yeah,
soon.
yeah,
But
chai.
thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation as much, and I think the questions were very much spot on. They were not like superficial or more theoretical. They were to do with what people can relate to or teams can relate to. So thank you for having me. Thank you for these questions. I really enjoyed those conversations. And thank you to all the viewers who would be either watching this or listening this.
Thank you once again. Bye bye.
Thank you.